Here's why I think Chainlink being a Hedera Council member could matter. And even though I'll talk about the price of HBAR later having an almost 4% decrease in the past 24 hours, I first want to discuss this often overlooked council member when it comes to Hedera, and I'll talk about its impact and how I think it could very well maybe benefit Hedera moving forward, even though nothing I say is financial advice and even though I am not telling anyone to do anything. So did you know that Chainlink recently celebrated its 7th anniversary? And of course, naturally, Hedera, having Chainlink as one of its council members, it decided to congratulate Chainlink, right? But why does this matter? Well, it's because if anything, if we think about it, Chainlink is one of the premier projects out there and arguably the most popular project out there within its own niche. And that niche is oracles. What do I mean by that? Chainlink is very well known for its decentralized oracle network. But if we take a look at an oracle, it's basically a data feed that brings data from off the chain. So it's off-chain data, and it brings that data over into the blockchain. And the reason why this is even crucial is because a lot of decentralized applications out there can't function properly without this off-chain data. So it's very crucial. So of course, naturally, we see something like Chainlink, which is a pioneer. Some people like to say when it comes to that space, we saw what happened to Chainlink. It just kind of, basically became really popular. But again, we got to think about the magnitude of something like Chainlink being on the Hedera Council. Because if, let's say, Chainlink, they can provide a little bit more expertise when it comes to Hedera. Maybe they can become closer. Who knows? A collaboration in terms of maybe an enterprise really likes Chainlink but also likes Hedera? We don't know, right? That could be something pretty impressive, and it would be more streamlined. Imagine if an enterprise likes Chainlink but also likes Hedera. They want to use aspects of Hedera. They also want to use aspects of Chainlink. Now, originally, if there was no kind of association, so to speak, between Hedera and Chainlink, it's very difficult to coordinate that. But because we already know that Chainlink is on the Hedera Council, it just makes things a lot more easier. So it opens the doors better, I think, when it comes to Hedera moving forward. And of course, Chainlink is more popular than Hedera, but the fact that even someone like Chainlink wants to be in the Hedera Council to begin with, it's really impressive in my opinion. Now, people like to say, but yeah, who really cares about this type of stuff? Chainlink isn't doing the best. Okay, I understand that, because Chainlink is an adjacent project to Hedera being within this space, if that makes sense. If we take a look at, for instance, some of Hedera's council members are not adjacent to the space that Hedera is in. Some of them, are focused on food, right? Like for instance, in the case of Monolith has brands like Oreo and the Cliff, or should I say the Cliff Bar, but I was saying Cliff. But yeah, besides that point. And also we take a look at something like McLaren, which is focused on the automotive industry. That's different. But Chainlink is a Hedera adjacent project in a sense where it's focused on the same space as Hedera, right? But the difference is if we take a look at Hedera Hashgraph, it doesn't utilize traditional blockchain technology, unlike some other projects out there. It uses something called a directed acyclic graph. So again, if we take a look at Chainlink, sometimes you like to say it's so alarming seeing something that's within this space not doing the best and it being on the Hedera Council. Why does it even matter? Well, it's because Chainlink, again, like I mentioned before, is arguably the most popular project within its own niche, which is oracles, right? So if that's in the Hedera Council, I don't see why it's a bad thing. I think if anything, it's actually a net positive. Some people think it's a negative thing because Chainlink is doing so bad, yet it's on the Hedera Council. They think it's going to negatively affect Hedera, but I don't think about it that way. I mean, okay, Chainlink is not doing the best, people like to say, which is true, but it's actually ranked higher than HBAR if we think about it. I mean, HBAR in the world, as of right now, when it comes to this space, ranked 23rd in terms of market cap. Chainlink is ranked 16th, or should I say its native token called Link. So, yeah, I mean, again, if Chainlink is doing so bad, does that mean Hedera is doing worse? Well, in theory, kind of, because it's ranked lower, but it doesn't mean that it's totally doing bad. I mean, a lot of projects out there are having a pullback. It's not only HBAR, it's not only Chainlink, right? But besides that, people like to kind of emphasize, oh wow, take a look at HBAR, an around 3% decrease in the past 24 hours, in 24 hours before that, or should I say in the preceding 24 hours before this video, people like to say HBAR was doing a little bit better. Well, yeah, I agree, but my mindset isn't kind of like hours anyways or days. My mindset is more years. So this is all background noise to me anyways. It's like, for instance, if let's say we take a look at people who are still holding Bitcoin from 2015 or whatever, Are they caring about what they were doing on a Tuesday on March 2015 and how Bitcoin did that day? They're not caring about that right now. That's long gone. That's history now. No one really cares about, that moment anymore. So if I flash forward, even just let's say a year from right now, would I even care what HBAR does? Like, oh, an almost 4% decrease or whatever in the past 24 hours. Would I care about that? Not really. So it's all kind of background noise because my mindset is years anyways when it comes to this. I mean, I don't know how long exactly I'm going to have to be waiting. There's just no way I could do that. But one thing I do know though is that I'm just going to wait it out. That's it. I mean, I know it sounds a little bit silly. People are like, oh, you're just waiting like that? Well, yeah, I mean, I'd have to live my life anyways, right? I mean, if I wasn't holding, I'd still have to go through 2026, 2027, 2028, and so on. No different than if I was holding or not. Even though I'm not telling anyone to do anything, but let's just take a look back in like 2014, 2015. Was I holding Bitcoin? No. You know what I mean? Can I go back in time? No, I can't. But did the market do its thing without me? Yeah, it did. Had I been in the market, would it still have done its thing? Probably, right? I'm just one person. I can't control anything. But then I can't go back in time. So I focus on the present. Because one thing when it comes to this space that I do know is that over the long run, we've seen what happened to Bitcoin, Ethereum, and so on. Over the long run, right? In the short run, it could be very volatile, but in the long run, it's a little bit different usually. Keep in mind, Bitcoin at one point was at $1. So let's just let that sink in. Now, there's many ups and downs along the way, but we have to take a look at the overall trajectory. That's the thing. So when I take a look at, let's say in the case of HBAR, am I saying that it's going to be, as big as Bitcoin or let's say Ethereum? No, I'm not saying that. But Hedera Hashgraph, because it does have a unique aspect to it, again, having an aspect of a directed acyclic graph, not traditional blockchain technology, and also taking a look at Hedera's council, which does include Chainlink, Google, Mondelez. Previously in the past, we saw Boeing, like, the aviation company, even though they left, but I'm saying still, that's pretty impressive. So at the end of the day, again, when I take a look at Hedera, it just doesn't give me a vibe where it's here for the short run, right? Some other projects out there, especially some memes out there, we don't know if they're going to be around in a couple of years. But if I take a look at Hedera, its governing council, its fundamentals, I just have a hard time seeing this randomly kind of be forgotten about like that. Now, people like to say, oh, it could happen. In theory, that's true. But take a look at Luna, like Luna Classic. I mean, that still has a very big following. You know what I mean? And what fundamentals does that have? Many people treat it like a meme. That's just how it is as of right now, especially because of the crash, right, when it comes to that. But at the same time, if Luna Classic, people are saying, oh, it's going to be around in 5 years or 10 years, suddenly Hedera won't? How does that make sense? Hedera actually has the fundamentals as of right now. That's the thing, even though I'm not telling anyone to do anything. So when I take a look at HBAR as of right now, yes, now it's around 9.5 cents, but it's whatever to me. This is all going to be background noise anyways. We're clearly over 3 times lower than January of 2025, in which we were around 35 cents. That's not a bad thing though, because I like the dip. It's kind of no different. Some people out there like the dip when it comes to platinum, gold, and silver for the physical assets. Some people like the dip when it comes to that, but I kind of find it no different here. I mean, it's still an asset, but it's just not physical, it's digital. So it's a little bit of a different case, even though I'm not telling anyone to do anything. But if some people out there like the dip when it comes to precious metals, I view it no different here. That's just my mindset. Again, I don't mind the dip because if HBAR goes back to January of 2025, again, we're over 3 times lower than that. Could it return back to that? We'll have to wait and see. But only time will tell. And January of 2025 was not an altcoin season. So if HBAR could go back to that, it's already kind of impressive because HBAR has had that much of a decrease, which may sound like a bad thing, but for dollar cost averaging, I don't find it to be a bad thing for me. This feels a little bit like a throwback, right? Because 10 cents, we saw that back in January of 2021. So this right here is like January 2021 levels, but in 2026 in May. Kind of ridiculous if I think about it, but you know what? I don't mind for dollar cost averaging purposes, but I'm not telling anyone to do anything. But I'll be sure to make more updates moving forward when it comes to Hedera. So hopefully y'all stay tuned for that. And I want to say thank you for watching. It's been Lee the Captain.